Sunlight bled through the gauzy curtains of the upscale downtown loft. It was the kind of morning where everything felt still and secure. Coffee brewed in the background, the soft hum of life gliding into motion. Daniel Morgan stood in the kitchen, stirring cream into his mug, watching his fiancée, Melissa Hart, as she tied her silk robe and padded toward him barefoot. She smiled. The smile he used to believe was for him. "Morning, babe," she said, brushing her lips against his cheek. He smiled back. "Morning. Coffee?" She nodded, and he handed her a cup like he did every morning. It had become ritual, cozy, domestic, safe. They'd been together for nearly 7 years. Friends called them goals. His parents adored her. Her friends envied her life. Together, they looked like a Pinterest board of successful love. But even perfect pictures have filters. Daniel glanced at the calendar on his phone. Anniversary dinner plans? Check. Melissa's charity gala next weekend? Check. Her business trip to Chicago? Another check. All routine. She glanced at her phone, then tucked it away quickly into her robe pocket. "Who was that?" Daniel asked, casual tone. "Just Dana," she said, sipping her coffee. "We're finalizing the seating chart for the gala." Dana, her assistant, always buzzing about something. Nothing unusual, except her voice had a microscopic quiver. Just a flicker. If you weren't listening, you wouldn't hear it. Daniel was listening. He didn't want to be suspicious, but lately, something felt off. It started with small things: a change in her perfume, a sudden enthusiasm for late-night work calls, a defensive edge in her voice whenever he asked about her schedule. She'd always been ambitious, co-founder of a boutique PR firm, charming, always 3 steps ahead. But now, there was something else beneath that polish. He didn't say anything. He smiled, kissed her forehead, and walked back into the bedroom to grab his laptop. As he passed the vanity, his eyes fell on a folded envelope tucked between jewelry boxes. Handwritten, not addressed. His gut tightened. He didn't touch it. Just noticed, made a mental note. Daniel worked from home today. He managed digital product design for a Fortune 100 firm. It allowed flexibility. And lately, it also allowed observation. Melissa left around 10, supposedly to meet a client downtown. 10 minutes later, Daniel logged into their shared home security app. He watched the footage. She walked out the front door, looking impeccable, then turned the corner. 3 minutes later, a black Audi pulled up. She got in the passenger seat. It wasn't an Uber. Daniel stared at the screen for a long time, fingers still hovering over the keyboard. That wasn't Dana driving. Their anniversary dinner was at Le Papillon, a French bistro she loved. Candlelight shimmered on the table between them. Melissa looked stunning. Backless dress, crimson lips, eyes like a polished lie. Daniel played along. "To us," he said, raising his glass. "To us," she echoed, clinking it gently. She reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "I don't say it enough, but I'm lucky to have you. Not just for the way you love me, but the way you believe in me. I don't know what I'd do without you." Daniel swallowed hard. The words might have been beautiful once. Now they sounded like a script, lines rehearsed for a play she'd been starring in for years. He smiled anyway. "Same here, Mel." As she looked away to check her phone, again, he caught a glimpse of the name glowing on her lock screen. W. "Can't wait to see you." She quickly tilted the screen down. Daniel didn't flinch. He reached for his wine, swirled it, sipped. He wouldn't confront her. Not yet. He had a feeling this rabbit hole went deeper than a fling. Later that night, Melissa slept beside him, chest rising and falling peacefully. Daniel stared at the ceiling, his mind spinning through memories. 7 years of shared holidays, whispered promises, joint bank accounts. He thought he knew her, but trust is a fragile thing. Once cracked, it shatters quietly. He got out of bed and walked to the living room. His laptop waited, open like a door he wasn't ready to walk through, but couldn't ignore. He opened a new document and typed the title: Payback, Operation Clean Sweep. Then, he began to type notes. Check travel itineraries. Review shared account activity. Investigate W. Backup phone logs. Consult Will, lawyer. Discreetly, Daniel wasn't the type to scream, or throw things, or cheat back. No, he was patient. And now he was wide awake. A rainy Tuesday draped the city in a sleepy gray haze. Daniel sat in a quiet corner of a cafe, laptop open, headphones in, not for music, but to eavesdrop without raising suspicion. His eyes were locked on Melissa's calendar, synced from the cloud. She had a client lunch booked. Address: Faro and Elm Restaurant, Midtown. He clicked on the link embedded in her calendar. It didn't say Dana was joining, just the words, private. Daniel knew better now. He flagged a rideshare and left. Daniel stood across the street, hood up, eyes scanning the sleek modern patio. His heart thudded in his chest, a war drum of disbelief. He didn't want to see what he already suspected. But then he did. Melissa, laughing, sitting with a sharply dressed man, mid-40s, polished, silver at the temples. Not a client, not a friend. They were too close, too intimate. Her hand rested on his. Daniel stepped back behind a parked SUV, pulled out his phone, snapped a photo, another. Then she leaned forward and kissed the man on the mouth. Long, familiar. Daniel closed his eyes. 7 years, shattered in 7 seconds. That night, Melissa walked in like she always did. Heels clicking, voice cheerful. Long day, she sighed, dropping her keys in the bowl. Daniel turned from the kitchen, a beer in hand. Client lunch go well? She blinked once, a fraction too long. Yeah, long, but productive. Dana's trying to convince this guy to sponsor our new campaign. He studied her face. Her lie was effortless. Was it at Faro and Elm? She paused. No, we ended up rescheduling last minute. Just grabbed takeout in the office. He nodded slowly. Weird. Thought I saw you there when I passed by. The flicker in her eyes. Guilt, panic, calculation. It was lightning fast, but it was there. Oh, maybe you did, she said with a soft laugh. We swung by quickly, actually. I forgot. She was quick, dangerous. Daniel wanted to scream. Instead, he took another sip of beer. Cool. He had the photo. He had a partial license plate. Now he needed a name. He reached out to the one person he knew who had the tools. Liam Rowe, his college buddy, now an investigator for a private security firm. They hadn't spoken in months, but loyalty was like blood between them. Daniel's text. Need a license plate traced. Not cops. Quiet? Can you help? Liam's text. Send me the picture. I'm on it. Everything okay? Daniel's text. Not really. I'll owe you one. An hour later, Liam responded. The car's registered to Warren Templeton, Chief Executive Officer of Orbis Financial. Married, 2 kids, no recent security flags. Interesting guy for your girlfriend to be meeting. Daniel felt the breath leave his lungs. Warren Templeton, a name he recognized. Melissa had mentioned him before, vaguely, in the context of industry networking. But never like this. It wasn't just cheating. It was betrayal on a professional level, too. Templeton was known for hostile acquisitions. His firm had recently acquired a stake in one of Melissa's biggest PR clients. Was Melissa feeding him information? Daniel sat alone, blue light from his laptop casting shadows across his face during midnight. He opened the folder on his desktop, Operation Clean Sweep. He started building profiles. Warren Templeton, married, reputation obsessed, hyper-controlling, active in high society philanthropy. Melissa Hart, co-founder of Lux PR, no prenup, mingled social assets, lied about family background, history of fabricated narratives in client campaigns. Daniel's hands shook as he uncovered more. She had taken out loans, in his name, 3 years ago, consolidated under their shared credit, quietly, legally, but sneakily. She'd masked it as business expenses, and she'd funneled company contacts to Templeton's firm, neatly masked as joint ventures. She was playing both sides. And Daniel? He was the fool funding her con. Flashback to 2 years ago in a party. Melissa laughed at some joke Warren told across the table. Daniel sat beside her, noticing for the first time how easily she slipped into another self. Corporate, glamorous, coy. He had dismissed it then as charm. Now he knew. It was rehearsal. The next morning, Daniel called Liam. "Hey," Liam said. "You okay?" "No, but I have a plan." Daniel laid it out. He needed records, asset trails, paper footprints, connections between Melissa and Templeton. Anything that would paint a clear picture. But legally? Liam whistled. "You're going after both?" Daniel's voice was ice. "They spent years weaving lies. I'm going to unravel them, thread by thread." Liam hesitated. "You sure you don't want to walk away? Divorce? Be done?" Daniel looked out the window. "No, I want her to watch everything she built burn. With a front row seat." A week later, Daniel had footage. Liam sent him a USB drive labeled Confirmation. Daniel clicked play. Melissa, sitting with Warren, discussing Templeton's upcoming merger and how she was pushing her clients toward it, selling trust for gain. She even joked, "Daniel? Oh, he still thinks we're building a life together. Bless his heart." Daniel's hand tightened into a fist. That was the final cut. At night, Daniel closed his laptop, files labeled and locked. He turned toward a whiteboard with bullet points. Financial fraud, infidelity, leverage Templeton's, reputation, legal exit plan, media tip-off. At the bottom, he wrote 2 words in red marker. Phase 1. Act normal. 1 week later, Daniel wore his best mask. The calm, steady fiancé. Morning coffee, casual kisses, weekend plans. He listened as Melissa recounted her latest pitch meeting with sparkling eyes and lies lined with lace. All the while, Phase 1 was already complete. He had evidence, documents, audio recordings, financials. Liam had outdone himself. Now it was time for Phase 2. Weaken the web. Daniel walked into Melissa's office unannounced, holding a bouquet of flowers and a tray of gourmet cupcakes. Her staff welcomed him with wide smiles, the sweet fiancé dropping in to spoil her. "Daniel, what a surprise," Melissa said, cheeks flushed with pretend delight. "I thought you could use a midweek treat," he said smoothly, glancing around her glass-walled office. His eyes landed on her desk and a folder labeled Templeton Holdings. She reached over, casually sliding it into a drawer. "Confidential client stuff. You know how it is." He handed her a cupcake. "Of course, just wanted to say I love you." She kissed him, soft, calculating. "I love you too." As she turned away to greet a call, Daniel discreetly placed a small black USB dongle into the back of her desktop monitor. It blended with the wires. Invisible. A gift from Liam. It would copy everything. The downloaded files were gold. There were drafts of fake performance reports Melissa used to manipulate investors. Proof she was secretly advising Templeton on media strategies to undermine his competitors. Clients she was still under contract with. It was fraud, ethical violations, and possibly jail time. But Daniel didn't want jail, not yet. He wanted exposure. Next day, Daniel sat across from his lawyer and old friend, Cassandra Yu. Fierce, brilliant, and loyal. He laid it all out. The betrayal, the embezzlement, the scheme with Templeton, the forged applications, the loans. Cass's eyes widened as she flipped through the documents. "Jesus, Daniel, she's good, ruthless." "I need to pull the pin carefully," he said. "No warning, no confrontation, just collapse." "You want revenge," she said, "but clean." "Exactly." Cass tapped her pen. "Here's what we do. Separate your finances. Quietly. Move your assets. Remove your name from any joint liability. Then, we tip off the board of directors from both companies, Templeton's and Lux PR's. With what you have, it'll start a chain reaction." Daniel nodded slowly. And the press? Cass smiled. Once the truth is out, they'll come begging for it. On a Friday night, glitz, glamour, a skyline glittering above hundreds of guests. Melissa was in her element, the star of the evening, dressed in emerald silk, her laughter echoing through the marble hall. Warren Templeton was there too, under the guise of corporate sponsorship. Their affair, hidden behind expensive smiles. Daniel played the doting fiancé. He shook hands, told jokes, kissed her on the cheek for the camera. But beneath it all, his heart was steel. Cass had filed the corporate disclosures that afternoon. By morning, the first domino would fall. The board had received an anonymous package over the weekend. Inside were copies of emails, voice recordings, and financial transfers between Templeton and Melissa. Conflict of interest, insider trading, manipulation of press releases. Warren walked in Monday morning to find his board in an emergency session, with a security escort waiting just outside the door. Same morning, Melissa was mid-presentation when her assistant interrupted. "Melissa, you need to see this." She walked out of the meeting to find 4 reporters in the lobby and 2 of their biggest clients on speakerphone, terminating contracts, effective immediately. One of them snarled, "We trusted you, and you sold us out to the man who tried to tank our valuation." Melissa's voice trembled for the first time in years. Wait, there must be a misunderstanding. But there wasn't. The evidence had gone public. Melissa stormed in, eyes wild. "What the hell is happening, Daniel?" He looked up from the couch, calm as ice. "Trouble at work?" She stalked toward him. "Don't play dumb. Someone leaked confidential files. Templeton's been suspended. Our office is in chaos. And I'm being investigated for breach of fiduciary duty." Daniel stood. "Maybe you should have thought of that before lying to me for 7 years. Her eyes widened. "What?" "I know everything, Melissa. The affair, the fake reports, the loans in my name, the way you used me to finance your ladder climb while you slept with the man on the top rung." She stepped back, stunned. "I gave you everything," he said coldly. "And you turned me into your personal pawn." Her voice broke. "Daniel, it wasn't like that." He laughed, bitter, hollow. "Save it. This isn't a negotiation. It's your unraveling." She started to speak again, but he held up a folder. "These are the divorce papers, pre-reviewed, already filed. I've secured my assets. My credit is locked. And the lease? It's in my name. You'll need to find somewhere else to stay." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. "You didn't just lose me," he said, walking past her. "You lost the mask, and when the dust settles, everyone will know who you really are." Later that week, something came on news. The headline was brutal. "PR queen and billionaire exposed in scandal web of lies." The article detailed insider dealings, ethical breaches, and personal betrayal. Accompanied by leaked photos, including one of Melissa and Warren at Faro and Elm, courtesy of a concerned source. Daniel read it once, then closed the page. "You did it," Cass said. "She's ruined. He's under federal audit, and you came out clean." Daniel exhaled. "It wasn't about destroying them. It was about taking my life back." Cass smiled. "So what's next?" He looked out the window. "Peace." Melissa stood before a nearly empty office, her once loyal team packing boxes and avoiding eye contact. The walls that bore her framed accolades now stared back blankly. The board of directors had officially suspended her pending the investigation. Her bank accounts had been frozen due to suspected financial fraud. Templeton refused to return her calls. And Daniel? Nowhere. She had been iced out of every circle that once bowed to her. Her PR empire had fallen, not with a bang, but with the silent clicks of emails labeled terminated and doors that no longer opened. The lights flickered in the tiny rental. She sat in leggings and an old hoodie, sipping discount wine, scrolling through hate-filled comment sections under online news articles. Words like snake deserved everything she got. How many people's careers did she ruin? Melissa's phone buzzed. A call from a blocked number. She answered. Hello? A cold pause. Then Daniel's voice, calm as glass. Enjoying the view from the bottom? You smug! She snapped. No, we're not smug, he cut in. Just done. She gritted her teeth. You think you won? You think you'll come out of this some kind of hero? No, Daniel said, unshaken. Heroes don't plan payback. But I'm not the villain here, Melissa. I was just the fool who finally woke up. Then he hung up. She screamed and hurled the wine glass across the room, where it shattered against the wall, just like her carefully curated life. Daniel now ran his own consulting firm, lean, agile, and ethical. He had poached the best from his old contacts, clients Melissa tried to siphon from. His phone chimed. A message from Cassandra. Templeton being indicted. Formal charges coming. Melissa officially blacklisted from PR Guild. Daniel sighed, not in triumph, but in closure. He opened his calendar, marked a single word in bold under today's date: rebuild. Daniel sat across from Emily, a journalist who had written one of the more balanced articles on the scandal. She had asked for a follow-up interview, but he had a different idea. I want to invest in a truth-based media startup, Daniel said. Emily raised an eyebrow. You want to bankroll journalism? No clickbait, no spin, just clean, principled work, he explained. People are hungry for something real. I've lived the damage lies can cause. Now I want to fund truth. She leaned forward, intrigued. That's rare. So let's build something rare, he said, smiling. Days later, at Melissa's attorney's office. Your debts exceed your liquid assets by nearly $2 million, her attorney said flatly. Melissa sat rigid, makeupless, and weary. That's impossible. It's not. You leveraged your credit, used Daniel's good standing. Once those accounts were frozen and reversed, everything collapsed. She stared blankly. Warren won't help you? He asked. She scoffed. He ghosted the minute his lawyers advised him to. There's one option, the attorney said hesitantly. If you issue a public apology and cooperate with investigators, they may reduce charges. She narrowed her eyes. I'm not giving Daniel the satisfaction. The attorney folded his hands. Then prepare for bankruptcy and likely indictment. A small op-ed appeared under the title, When Power Becomes Poison, My Mistake. Melissa's name was in the byline, but the tone was wrong. Cold, defensive, self-serving. Social media tore it apart. It trended for all the wrong reasons. Not sorry. Too little, too late. Daniel read it, then quietly deleted it. Her apology wasn't for healing. It was a final PR move. But there was no stage left to stand on. Daniel was volunteering, organizing a fundraiser for youth mentorship, something he had always wanted to do, but was too busy managing Melissa's messes. He smiled as he watched kids from underfunded schools practice pitches for scholarships. One of the young boys grinned up at him and said, I want to be like you. Daniel knelt, clapped him on the shoulder. Be better, he said. Start with honesty. Melissa sat alone at night, scrolling through news. Daniel was making waves, his firm now a rising star in ethical consulting. His story was becoming a case study in resilience and reputation. Her name, meanwhile, had become shorthand for betrayal. She pulled out an old photo, her and Daniel at their engagement dinner. So much polish, so much pretend. She whispered, I could have had everything, but she had gambled it, and lost. Daniel stood alone under the stars, a glass of wine in hand. The city stretched out before him, familiar, but no longer suffocating. Melissa's betrayal had nearly broken him, but it also woke him up. He had loved a mask. Now he could finally breathe without it. His phone buzzed, a message from Emily. Investor meeting confirmed, and, I'd like to grab dinner after. Just us. Daniel smiled. Maybe life, real life, was finally beginning. 3 months later, at federal courthouse, Melissa adjusted the cuffs of her blazer. It was designer, once part of a prized wardrobe, now one of the few items she hadn't sold. Her eyes flicked across the courtroom. To the left sat Templeton's legal team, cold, calculating, and merciless. They had already cut a deal to protect the company, throwing Warren under the bus in exchange for corporate immunity. To the right sat the press, their pens ready, hungry for a final quote from the woman who once played queen on a glass throne. And directly ahead, seated in the second row, was Daniel. He met her eyes for a moment. No anger, no satisfaction, just finality. The judge entered. All rise. The charges were read: wire fraud conspiracy to commit securities fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, identity theft, connected to the loans in Daniel's name. Melissa pleaded guilty to a reduced set of charges. In exchange for her cooperation and full disclosure, jail time would be minimal, a year, maybe two. But the sentence wasn't the worst part. The judge's words were, "This court recognizes a pattern of calculated deception, professional misconduct, and emotional manipulation. The ripple effects of your choices harmed dozens of individuals and tainted two major institutions. You're hereby sentenced to 16 months in federal custody and 5 years probation." Gasps echoed. Melissa closed her eyes. Daniel sat with Cassandra and Emily. The office buzzed, phones ringing, junior consultants working late, life in motion. "I got a letter from her," Daniel said, handing Cassandra the envelope. Cassandra opened it. "Daniel, there's no apology that will change what I did. Not to you, not to everyone else. I lost everything trying to chase power, and I used the only good thing I had left, you, to do it. I hope you build something beautiful." Melissa Emily looked up. "You believe her?" "No," Daniel said flatly. "But I think, for once, she actually meant it." He tossed the letter in the drawer. Closed it. That chapter was over. Daniel stood on stage at a tech ethics summit. He wore a fitted blazer, no tie, sleeves casually rolled. "Trust is currency," he said to the crowd, "and once you counterfeit it, no one wants to trade with you again." Applause. Nods. His words came from a place deeper than theory, lived, scarred, and healed. Afterward, young founders approached. They wanted advice, mentorship. A few asked about Melissa, the scandal still a ghost in their industry. Daniel always said the same. "Let's focus on what's next, not what crashed." The metal shelves were dusty. The light overhead flickered. Melissa sat alone at a table with a borrowed notebook and pen. She was writing again, not memos or press releases, but a personal memoir. Her title was scratched into the top of the first page: "The Lie That Cost Me Everything." For the first time in years, there was no audience, no followers, no praise, just reflection. A month later at Daniel's balcony, Emily curled into Daniel's side. The night air was cool, calm. "You know, you never really told me what made you snap," she said softly. "Like, really decide to destroy her." Daniel took a breath. "She looked me in the eyes for years and told me she loved me, while gutting everything behind my back. It wasn't the betrayal that broke me," he said. Emily waited. "It was realizing I never truly knew the person I shared a bed with." Emily squeezed his hand. "But now you do," she said. "You know yourself." Daniel looked at her, steady, honest, unafraid. "Yeah, I really do." Emily dropped a manuscript on her editor's desk 3 months later. Untold: How a PR Power Couple Crumbled, and One Man Rebuilt Himself from the Ashes. The editor flipped through it. "This is strong, balanced, and honest." Emily smiled. "It's Daniel's story, but it's also everyone's story, about finding truth after betrayal." He nodded. "We'll run it front page, maybe even a feature spread." She texted Daniel, "You're about to be everywhere again, but this time for the right reasons." Nearly 2 years had passed. Melissa stood before the judge once more, thinner, quieter, her hair tied back in a simple braid. "You've served your sentence, But your career, your finances, and your credibility remain permanently impacted, the judge stated. Use your second chance wisely. She nodded. Outside the courthouse, no paparazzi waited. No reporters, no enemies, just silence. She walked alone, and for the first time, had no idea what came next. The firm was thriving. A team of 25 national clients, a code of ethics printed and posted at the entrance. Daniel stood in the middle of it all, not with pride, but with peace. A junior consultant asked, "Hey boss, how did you pull it all off?" Daniel smiled. "I stopped letting someone else write my story." He stepped into his glass-walled office, where Emily waited, laughing over a cup of coffee. His new chapter had already begun. The store was buzzing with energy, shelves lined with fresh releases and old gems. A handwritten sign above a center display read, "Author Event, Daniel Pierce. Burn Notice, A Journey from Betrayal to Truth." Daniel stood at the front, pen in hand, signing copies for a long line of readers. His memoir had become an unexpected bestseller, not because of the scandal, but because of the clarity and vulnerability within it. Each person who came up to him had a story, a betrayal, a survival, a question. One woman, eyes glistening, whispered, "You reminded me that healing isn't weakness." Daniel smiled. "Neither is walking away." A delivery man knocked. Melissa opened the door slowly. A brown package sat on the ground. No name, no return address. She brought it in, opened it carefully. Inside, a hardcover copy of Burn Notice. No note, just a red ribbon tied around the cover. She stared at the author's photo on the jacket. Daniel, no longer weighed down by the ghost of her. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, quietly, she opened the book and began to read. Daniel stood on a makeshift stage, the gym packed with students, parents, and teachers. He had been invited to speak at a youth mentorship graduation, a program his firm now sponsored annually. He looked out at the crowd, especially the front row of eager teenagers, and smiled. "I was lied to, betrayed, almost broken," he began. "But that isn't where the story ends, because pain can be recycled into power, into purpose." He lifted a small bracelet, one given to him by a mentee. "It's not about what happens to you. It's about what you build after." The crowd erupted in applause. Emily and Daniel hosted a private dinner, just friends and colleagues. String lights glowed overhead. Laughter floated into the night air. Cassandra raised a toast. "To Daniel, for proving you can be burned and still light the way." Glasses clinked. Daniel glanced at Emily, who leaned in and whispered, "So, you planning any more epic revenge arcs?" He chuckled. "No one was enough." She grinned. "Good. You're terrible at being mysterious." He laughed. "Guess I'm better at just being honest." Melissa now worked there, not as a client, but as a volunteer. She led writing workshops for women recovering from trauma and destructive patterns. She didn't talk about her past, not yet. But when someone asked, "Have you ever made a mistake you couldn't fix?" she simply nodded. And she wrote alongside them. The place was warm, filled with books, plants, art. Peaceful. Daniel poured 2 cups of coffee and brought one to Emily, who sat editing a column on her laptop. She looked up. "You okay?" He smiled. "Yeah, actually. Yeah." He looked out the window. "No more looking over my shoulder. No more wondering if it was all a lie. I know who I am now." She reached for his hand. "And I know who you are too." Years ago, Daniel sat in his old corner office, smiling dumbly as Melissa kissed his cheek, holding out an NDA to sign on behalf of her next big campaign. He had trusted her, blindly. That same NDA sat framed on his bookshelf now, not out of nostalgia, but as a reminder. A reminder that truth matters, that trust is earned, and that starting over isn't a weakness, it's an act of courage. Daniel jogged down the trail, headphones in, calm and steady. As he rounded the bend, he passed a bench where Melissa sat alone, watching the lake. For a split second, their eyes met. No drama, no words, just a quiet recognition of everything that had been lost and everything that had been rebuilt. Daniel gave a faint nod. Melissa gave a small, sad smile, and he jogged on. Daniel sat across from a host, Mike in front of him. "Final question," the host said. "If you could go back and undo it all, the lies, the betrayal, the heartbreak, would you?" Daniel thought for a long beat. "No," he said finally, "because without it, I'd still be asleep. Sometimes you need the fire to wake you up. And if you're lucky, to forge something stronger." The host leaned back, impressed. "Well said." Daniel smiled. The recording light flicked off, and with that, the story was truly done.